All right, hi everybody, welcome. Today is Monday, October 28th. This is the Mount Mansfield Unified Union School District Board meeting. We have a full house here. There's some chocolate if anybody would like to snack, help yourself. And I am Edie Granning, I'm the board chair. I'm going to run us through the agenda. If we have any changes, we will make them now, and then we'll get started. So we will have a roll call after the agenda review. Then we have community comments. After that, we'll have an overview of the Spanish Immersion program and the other specialized programs in the district. Following that, we will have a presentation of the priorities for the budget from transportation, food service, and facilities. After that, we will approve the criteria for the superintendent search, minutes from the meeting previously on the 14th of October, any committee reports, and any other business. I don't have other business today, so just putting that out there. The other thing I want to make really clear to folks is that we have a time slot with our consultants from 7:40 to 8:40, so we may have to move some other things around depending on how long everything goes. I don't want anyone to feel like we're not giving due time for any conversation that we're having. So there is a chance that we may have to either move things around or table some things for a future meeting. So I don't want, has only to do with the fact that we have today as a deadline for our superintendent search criteria so that we can get that out for application. Any modifications or adjustments to the agenda? Okay, Pat, would you do a roll call for us, please? Oh, we can't hear you. You're not muted on your screen, but we still can't hear you. All right, Lisa, do you want to try? Our clerk.
Yes, just give me a second to pull up names.
Great.
Let's see. Here we go. Steve Diglio. Ethan Maurer.
Will not be here tonight.
Okay. Gail Conley.
Present.
Edie Granning.
I am here.
Sandra Limoges.
I'm here.
Stuart Morgeau. Here. Susan Mullins. Okay.
I'm here.
Okay. Thomas Firstel.
Here.
Tara Arneson.
Present.
Allison Conant.
Here.
Heather Chadwick.
Here.
Katie Nelson.
Here.
James Granzow.
Here.
Okay, so Kevin Campbell.
Here, Lisa.
Thank you. And Lisa Pollock here. Student representatives Eli Wemmett. I'm sorry.
Here.
And Gabrielle O'Malley.
She's not going to be able to be here today.
Okay.
I'm here late.
Or Steve. Steve is here. Great. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so our next is community comments. And for community comments, we're going to limit them to no more than 5 minutes per person. The board requests that participants clearly state their name and place of residence and topic of comment. The board will take no action on claims raised during community comments, and dialogue exchanges will be for clarification. If I could get a hands up from folks who want to talk so I know how many people actually want to speak tonight, that will help us to get organized here. So if you're on screen, give me a thumb, please. And if you're in the room, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8? Okay. Okay, great, thank you. I am going to start with folks in the room, and I'm just going to start on the end. So again, please state your name and town. Sorry. It's hard to be first.
I'm Colleen Popkin, and I'm from Jericho. I have comments related to 2 topics. The first is Spanish immersion, and the second is smartphones in schools. So my first comment is both of my children are in the Spanish immersion program. There was a 2nd grader and a 4th grader. When I entered the lottery for one of these coveted positions, I understood the position was modeled after a K-5 program, but I was also my understanding that the program was growing and maturing over time as each class came in. And I had faith that by the time my children reached middle school, we would have age and skill appropriate options for them to continue learning. So I've been a bit disheartened by the accounts from parents that are in the 6th and 7th grades. And so I'm here to express my interest in supporting those parents and also supporting the school board and the school to come up with solutions to preserve this program that we really, really love and to really preserve the progress that our kids have made. The second comment that I wanted to make was related to smartphones. I wanted to make the school board aware that last week on October 23rd, we had a community forum where it was at the Browns River Middle School, and it was attended by more than 60 people and about 28 kids who were watching a movie while the parents were upstairs learning from each other. There was a panel of pediatrician, psychiatrist, a student, a parent, a detective, and each person was able to offer their perspectives on smartphones and really help us understand the harms of unfettered access to smartphones and to social media. And so one of the things we talked about quite a bit was that collective action on this issue is really important. So that's why I'm here today. Parents feel like they can't do this individually. And so we'd love to how you can help on this issue, including new policies for phone-free schools. And if you'd like to connect with our community, you can do that. We're calling ourselves Reconnect, but lots of us are talking about it, and it's easy to get in touch if you're interested. Thank you.
Rachel Reed, I'm also from Jericho, and my comment is related to Spanish and superintendent search and criteria. So I also have 2 kids who are in or have been in the Spanish immersion program, and we understand, like Colleen said, that it ends at 5th grade, but now our students who are beyond that have an opportunity to continue to learn, and we want to continue to grow and build upon what they have learned with different Spanish options. So I encourage the board to, in your superintendent search, to look for someone who's excited to continue to build and design this program, both K-5 and then beyond, so that we can address all the needs, but then also someone who's, going to look at this whole, roughly from Jericho's perspective, we have 2/3 English, right, and only 1/3 Spanish. So there are lots of needs within the district, and so someone who can be creative with resources, right? Can't have all the resources we want, but we do need to meet the needs of everyone.
Hi, my name is Shay DeCoco. I live here in Richmond. I have a 2nd grader at RES and 5th grader here at Camel's Hump, and a 2-year-old who will be matriculating in the next couple of years. My comment is on Spanish immersion. My 5th grader went through RES before there was a Spanish immersion program, and my 2nd grader is obviously part of the RES cohort that has Spanish immersion. He's in an English class. And my comment is actually one of concern about the Spanish immersion program. As one of the parents to my left said, this is a coveted program. And I think having a coveted program in a public school is a potentially dangerous thing. And I don't know this organization, folks in front of me, and the data that's going to be shown here in the next few minutes, which I've reviewed ahead of time, really speaks to a clear case as to why we have this program. And frankly, what I've noticed from my daughter who went through the school system at RES without the program, and my son who went through the program, or is going through the school system in an English class where there is a Spanish immersion program, so there's 2 English and 1 Spanish, it's a significantly different school with Spanish immersion as part of the curriculum, because you have a really interesting dynamic where it sort of creates a 2-tier system, sort of like a charter school within a school. And there is a lot of negative qualitative feedback that comes from my kids and from their teachers that I don't think is really being considered when we think about how much we want to lean into this program. I think the data that you show is very limited quantitative data, and I think there's probably some negative quantitative data if we really wanted to dig, but there's no qualitative data to suggest, hey, is this working for the whole school, for the kids that are in the English program, as well as for the kids that are in the Spanish program. And my fear is there's great intent for doing this for the Spanish immersion kids. I mean, I studied abroad in a Spanish-speaking country, love the idea, but if you choose not to participate in that program, there's some negative things that are trickling in to the school system, and especially the elementary school where I see my son in a class full of 75% crazy boys and teachers struggling to contain it because you've sort of divided off a group that's in the Spanish immersion program. And so I just really want, my request is that we ask the teachers at RES and JES what they think of the program. Because I've spoken to a lot of teachers and they have a lot to say on this topic. And they are the best people to educate this group and our school system as to how we should be progressing or pulling back or adjusting this program.
Dan Goosen from Jericho, and I'm here to talk about Spanish immersion as well. Although I have a couple, 2 cents on the cell phone thing, but I have a 5th grader at Browns River who is in the program and has been since kindergarten when we actually relocated to Jericho for the program. So I first wanted to give my thanks to the board and the administration for having the program. I do feel fortunate that my son was able to get into it, and I'm appreciating his comments about it being different for everybody in the schools. But for those who have, or for the fact that the board has invested so much time and energy and resources into this program, I'm very appreciative. I've seen great things from my kid who now is pretty fluent in Spanish, and I think there's a lot of kids in that situation who have benefited greatly, and I think it is really critical that there's equal access to anybody who wants to be able to learn another language in this setting. I know it's very difficult from your perspective in terms of finding qualified teachers who are both fluent and want to live in Vermont. And so I commend you for everything you've done in that regard thus far. But I think it's really important that we don't leave these kids without additional opportunities to grow and not lose what they've gained, particularly after so much investment from you as a board and administration and all the teachers who have put so much energy into these kids learning another language. So I thank you is my main message, and hope that we can figure out how to provide additional opportunities for the 6th, 7th, 8th graders, particularly until they reach the high school, where I think there will be more opportunity for additional language at that or now. And then on the smartphone thing, I just want to echo, there was an incredible turnout and incredible energy from folks who are very concerned about phones in schools. And so I know as you're looking towards a replacement superintendent, that hopefully that is one thing that will come up in consideration, is that how they feel about this, because I think there's a growing concern amongst our community about what these things do to our kids' brains in this important development period when they are still trying to make good decisions, and we want them all concentrating on all the benefits that they can get from being in a classroom environment and without distraction. So, thank you.
Great.
First of all, can everybody hear on the screen? Because we were getting a text that they weren't able to hear very well, so I just wasn't sure.
Maybe because the mic is far from us. There's a mic here, so, and there, yeah, perhaps it was over there. Probably they can hear you really well.
Okay, I'm gonna go with it. All right, my name is Camille Campanile. I'm a resident in Jericho, Vermont with my partner and our 4 kids. I have a son who is a 6th grader at the RMS. He is the last Campanile working through. He is a graduate of the K through 5 district Spanish immersion program, which our family has been very, very grateful for. But I also I'm asking you with the utmost respect and also like sincere, heartfelt urgency to please support these kids. They have skills and they have needs that are not being met. Currently, they're in a level 1 high school program. They're 6th graders who have taken Spanish since kindergarten. They learn to read and write in Spanish. From my conversations with high school Spanish instructors and other people around the district, that is really an inappropriate program for them to be in. And I also know that, at least for my son, he has actually created his future goals around being bilingual. He really, really wants to hold on to this language and to continue to study it and develop as a Spanish speaker and learner. It has become such an important part of how he sees himself in the world. And it's really heartbreaking to see these kids dropping out of this program, or not the program since they're no longer in the program, but dropping out of the BTVLC piece because it is not challenging them and they do not have the level of support that they need. And so I really am very grateful to the program. But even though it ended in 5th grade, you still have students now who have needs, and you're going to have more students who have needs. And we really need to figure out ways to meet those needs, both through middle school and then also through high school, because they can't be freshmen taking AP Spanish, and they can't take dual enrollment classes until they are juniors. So if they are already at a level 3, level 4 now, how are we meeting their needs, not only in 7th and 8th grade, but then also as 9th and 10th graders? Thank you so much.
I just get somebody over here had their hand up. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, I'm Corey McKenzie. I'm a Richmond resident. I have a daughter in 7th grade, a son in 5th grade, and a daughter in 1st grade. And my 7th grader and 5th grader, we did not look at Spanish immersion because we live right next to the school, and I wasn't going to put them on a bus to go to Jericho. For my 1st grader, it was an option, and we explored it. But my questions at the time were, can you tell me more about students who are learning only in Spanish? Are they getting the literacy needs that they need so that if they're not being taught in English to read and write till 3rd grade, and then they are then enter middle school educations and the expectations are just as rigorous? I was not able to get that data, and so we decided to not put my daughter in that program. And I would like to echo Shay's thoughts. I think that this is an amazing program. I'm hearing from the parents in Jericho who are very happy with it. I don't hear from any Richmond parents who are happy with it. I wonder if the 2 programs are equitable. I wonder if they are equal. I wonder if, like Shay said, if you take a full cohort and you have 2/3 that are not Spanish and 1 that is that enrichment? Is that a free and appropriate public education? I know we all want a Cadillac education, but that's not what a FAPE is. I wonder about IEPs. I wonder about behavioral needs. I am hearing that the Spanish immersion program isn't able to support those needs as well, and in my mind, that's illegal. We have to be equitable to all our students. I wonder if we are losing good teachers because of this program, because we have what we had was 3 classes, right, and 3 teachers for each grade level. And then as the Spanish immersion program has come through, one of our English-speaking teachers has had to move out, and we've lost so many. We've lost, early retirement. We've had teachers move to Underhill. We're losing good staff, and I'm just concerned. And I would like us to not only speak to teachers, but maybe survey all the parents of both programs in Jericho and Richmond. I know that we have students who are coming to Richmond from Jericho who didn't get into the Jericho program. And I just wonder if we're really looking at it, the whole picture. Thank you.
Remote, Meredith, did you have your hand up? I don't see it up anymore.
I have mine up.
We have still have
Yeah,
people.
before we went to the.
Like
Yeah,
Oh, I'm so
there's
sorry.
a few over
Go
here.
ahead. I'm so
Yeah,
sorry.
I'm Andy Beeman. I have 2 kids. I'm from Jericho. Sorry, I have 2 kids in the program. One is in 7th grade. So she was in the pilot program going through in Jericho, and one is in 3rd grade. So she's still obviously in elementary school. And I just wanted to say about the program in Jericho that when she got her bilingual literacy certificate at the end of 4th grade, this was literally the proudest moment of her life, and still probably is. Loved it, right? But into 5th grade, it was a little bit less supported starting in 5th grade, even though it goes through 5th grade, but it kind of breaks apart in 5th grade. It starts to come apart. It's not as structured. 6th grade, the VT-VLC is really kind of just treading water, I think, until they can figure out what they're going to do. And I still feel like they're not sure what they're going to do, right? And then in 7th grade, I just had a conversation with her before I came here just to get a good understanding of what she feels about the program, and she feels the same way. Like it's kind of just really like a placeholder. She likes that she can still do Spanish. There's a Spanish-speaking person in the room, but it's really not kind of it's an excuse almost to just say like, yeah, you can do this, and just keep giving you some sort of Spanish thing to do. And even there have been a couple of times when they've tried to like fill that space almost as a study hall or like a catch up for like math or English when kids are struggling. They're like, oh, that's a good opportunity there. It's not. It shouldn't be, right? It should be like a Spanish class. Anyway, one of the things I wanted to say is like I really like the points. The people who are kind of like anti, I think you have great points. And I'm not trying to like go against what you're saying. But one of the things that like a pro Spanish immersion thing for this district is like the other districts in Vermont are really looking to this district, and like I think it is like a really positive thing. Whenever I talk about it, people are like, "Oh my gosh, your kids speak Spanish the whole day? That's amazing! I wish we had something like that in our district." And then I'm like, but the bad news is, as soon as they get into 5th grade, it kind of comes apart, and it's something that I think they're working on, but it's not. They're not quite there yet. So I feel like when the other districts, and I know that they are, like at least preliminarily, looking at this program and hopefully as a model for something that like could take off in the state of Vermont and like maybe even the country. If they're going to continue to do it, they need to like follow through on it, because it's not something that they follow through on. And that was just something I really wanted to get across. That's yeah. I was going to say something about smartphones, but I might actually speak with you afterwards about that. So thanks.
Thank you. Yep, I know there are more here. I know that I thought that folks online. Did anybody online have their hand up? I know hands are back down now. Yep. Okay, go ahead, Marla.
Hi, my name's Marla Patton. I live in Underhill, Vermont. I have a 7th grader who is currently actually no longer in the Spanish immersion program as of this year. We decided to not continue in the program. We had a good experience at Jericho. We found the transition to Browns River Middle School challenging. It's always challenging being the first class in any situation. And then 6th grade, I did meet with some of the, with John Alberghini the summer prior to 6th grade, and there was a lot of discussion over what our options are and were. Some of it we had challenges with finding teachers. There weren't a lot of teachers available. I do think having a dueling program, 2 programs starting before the completion of one, made that challenging. So I think starting the Richmond program made it challenging to find teachers. I think we have housing issues in this area, so I think that also makes it challenging to bring in teachers to teach the students. We did do the VTVLC program. It was supposed to be self-paced. It was not. They ended up doing all the kids at the same time. I don't really know why that happened. I think it was probably challenges around having an actual teacher to provide the instruction. They were kind of, trying to pull somebody in to fill that role. And then again, this year, we didn't find out what our options were until like 2 days before school. There was no follow-up with how the program went last year. I was not asked. I ended up volunteering that information, and then we chose to put our son in French because really his needs weren't being met. And for the past year, we've actually been hiring a private tutor 1 day a week that we've been shelling out money for so he can actually continue his Spanish, because it's very important to him and it's very important to us. And I 100% agree that the high school programs and the VTVLC programs don't quite meet the needs of these kids, because I think they're missing pieces with probably with spelling and conjugation, but at the same time, they're well above a Spanish 1 program. So I really appreciate the fact that the board is taking time to look at this program, and just appreciate everybody that's here. And pros or cons, like they're all good points.
Thank you. Kathy, I see you have your hand up. I'm going to come back into the room over here because some folks have their hands up, and then we'll come back to you after that. So, is that good?
I did.
I was going to say,
yeah. So
you stood and I had you sit back.
that's okay. Yeah, no, that's okay. Hi everyone. I'm Emily Lesh, and I have 2 kids in the district. One here at Camelot Middle School, who's a 7th grader, and a 4th grader at RES. My 7th grader started in the Spanish Immersion program in the first cohort with Marla's son and others in the room here, and I also just want to. And it wasn't the right fit for him ultimately. It was very personal to his learning needs and his unique learning needs. And I want to, I just have a few questions, kind of overall big picture, that I came to a board meeting, I think it was now, thinking it was pre-COVID, it was about 5 years ago. And I would love to just resurface some questions around what our overall goals in the district are for the Spanish Immersion program. What are the measurable outcomes that we're working to achieve, and then getting a plan in place to work towards those, so that kids that are in the program receive equitable outcomes and services to those who also are not in the program, and making sure that we have the supports lined up across the district to really meet the needs of every student. Because at the district, I think kind of stepping back from my role as a parent, but thinking about our role as a school and our role as your role as a board and a district overall, is to ensure that our students have equitable opportunities and access to learning across the district. And I would love to be a part of conversations and ensuring that that work is happening, and also that students, no matter what program they're in or what classroom they're in, that they're receiving these equitable opportunities. So yeah, thank you. And I'm really pleased to see the community conversation around it. And not the pros or cons, but I think in order for this type of program to thrive in a small rural community like Vermont, it's going to take intense planning, and we really need to focus on the evidence and research around what works for our students and for our educators and our system as a whole. So it's complex. Thanks. I'll step down before I was done.
Hi, everybody. I'm Brandy Thomas. I'm a resident of Richmond. I have 2 students who are thriving here at Camelot Middle School. And I have a 2nd grader at RES who I frankly am concerned that he has the same opportunity to thrive now that Spanish Immersion is at RES. And I will say I'm even more so worried about other students at RES and their ability to thrive under the current Spanish Immersion program being incubated at RES. I think that the Agency of Education just released data saying we have a statewide achievement gap between students from historically marginalized backgrounds. And it really makes me wonder what the role of this program is in perpetuating that or in making it smaller. I know that the school-wide data hasn't been released yet. I do look forward to seeing the district data from that report. I think this was just like a statewide snapshot, but it's definitely a concern of mine. I mean, I feel like the role of public education is to level the playing field for all kids. And I think there are innovative programs that do that. I mean, I think if you look at Snow Motion and like Mr. G's incredible program of getting all kids on the ski slopes, that is leveling the playing field. To me, right now, the way that Spanish Immersion is working in Richmond, it's putting the enrichment of a few over the interest of the entire cohort. And I wrote the board last spring asking some questions. I've spent time with Jeremy and Andrew. They've been generous with their time. They have shown me some data that refutes every negative perception about the program in Richmond. There's no gender imbalance. There's no strain on teacher-student, ratio. Behavior issues aren't a strain, even though like my son and his teacher have experienced students being moved out of Spanish due to behavior and into the mainstream classrooms that are already very strapped. I think like Shay, there's a lot of qualitative data that's not being shown and not being discussed, because I will tell you, I was at RES on Friday and had a meeting and was shown the quantitative data, and I walked into the parking lot and immediately heard qualitative data from the community that was vastly different. So, I'm told that resource-wise, this program doesn't cost more, doesn't take resources from Gen Pop to Spanish Immersion. But I will say, I think it takes a lot of energy, resources aside. I mean, I know that we've had 3 of 4 Spanish Immersion teachers leave at the end of the school year in Richmond. They've had to rehire them. I don't think there's been a Spanish Immersion teacher who stayed at Richmond for longer than 2 years. So I just want to ask everyone to remember that this program at RES currently serves less than 1/3 of the student population. And I want to make sure we're putting our energy in the right places.
Online and Kathy.
Sure. Hi there. Thank you for your time. My name is Kathy DeRoche, and I am a Richmond resident. And I just really want to echo to Shay and Brandy's point to really look at the whole program and how it impacts all students in school. I implore you to talk to the people living this in schools, talk to the Spanish Immersion teachers, the regular ed teachers, the special educators, and really consider, has this program brought our school and our community together, or has it divided us? So again, looking at that qualitative data is extremely important, and I really encourage you to look at the people who are actually living this. Thank you.
So we're about to have, I really just want to thank everybody for coming today. Really appreciate all of the input from the community on this. We've gotten some emails as well. And just to be really clear, this was on our calendar. So we put our calendar for the board together last year. This is something that the board wanted to look at also. So I just want you to know that this is something that we have also been looking for an update on, looking to understand what is, what the successes are, where we need to improve, how this program is going in the district. So we're gonna turn the table over to Andrew to take us through the presentation on our Spanish Immersion program and other special ed programs in the district.
Yep. Start. Perfect. All right. My name is Andrew Jones. I'm the assistant superintendent, and I'm going to focus on Spanish Immersion and some of the other innovative programs that we have here at the district. Next one. So these are the ones we'll be talking about tonight. Spanish Immersion, we'll spend most of our time on that. We'll also talk about nature-based learning, which is really more at the pre-K level, play-based and outdoor learning, our alternative programs, and then some of the course options we have at high school. So I wanted to start out with kind of a brief history of the Spanish Immersion program. So first off, this was well before my time. I started here in 2021. But for those of you who don't know, I think it's important to kind of understand the background. So back in 2015, 2016, there was a group of educators, parents, and board members and administrators, and they were researching the idea of having some sort of immersion program. They didn't necessarily know if it was going to focus on Spanish. They looked at different languages. And if you want to know more, there's a white paper that they wrote that's available on the website. And a lot of what I know about kind of the history of the Spanish immersion program here at Mount Mansfield comes from that report because I wasn't here. And so that's really where it started. Then in February 2016, after they did their research, they visited a variety of schools because at the time and currently, there are no other Spanish immersion programs in Vermont. And so a lot of where they got their information from were from some Spanish immersion programs in public schools in Massachusetts. They wrote the white paper and kind of put together a recommendation for this Spanish immersion program to be endorsed by the superintendent and to kind of get the blessing, so to speak, of the board. And then the first cohort went through Jericho in fall 2017, and that's something that's been brought up today, is that there are kind of two different tracks of this that did not start all at the same time. The first cohort at Richmond began in fall of 2020, so right in the middle of the pandemic, and then we had our first cohort enter Browns River in 2022. And so I think an important thing to know is that it's still kind of in implementation mode. This is not kind of done. We haven't even seen the first students through to high school graduation yet. We haven't even seen the first cohort at Richmond go to Camel's Hump yet. So there's still a lot of learning that's happening. So just a few details. And again, you know, this presentation, I think a lot of you have already seen it because it was linked in. It's just going to offer snapshots of things. It's not a dissertation on Spanish immersion program. First off, students enter it in kindergarten through a lottery system. That each year, and this has been mentioned today, that overall it's generally been fairly popular. That both RES and JES, there's generally a wait list of, it averages from year to year around 10 students. I also, just like a side note, John and I, we get emails and calls from folks from both in district and out of district asking about the program. So since I've been here, it's been pretty popular. Attrition from the program has generally been pretty small. So about 95% of students kind of maintain through the program. Certainly some students move to other schools, or they, you know, there's been a few students, 3 that I know, that have swapped out of the essay program into English program. But generally speaking, most folks kind of stay in it, so attrition has been pretty minimal. One area that we have been looking on, I think this was brought up tonight as well, is around, you know, supporting students, you know, particularly around IEPs. That was something that was the focus of last year. And we worked with both our teachers here and our educators here, and with the state of Vermont with their Title IV ELL person, and to try to figure out like how do we best support students in the Spanish immersion program who have specialized needs, because the main thing is that we didn't want the program to not be able to cater to those folks. We want to make sure that if they do have extra needs, that they can still be in the program, and that's something I think we've focused on pretty heavily, is to make sure like behaviors, specialized needs, etc., that is not a precursor to not be in the program, that you can have all the needs and still be in the program. And the reality is we do have those students in the program. Currently, K-5, and I think that's another important note, is it's a K-5 program. We have about 197 students. So when we look at our K-4 schools, we're talking about roughly a little below 1/3 of our students. So quite a few students. A lot of these you'll see from the white paper, but these are some of the reasons why the initial group looked to develop a language immersion program. So one is that for folks who are interested in gaining secondary languages, this is one of the most effective ways of doing that. It also helps to gain additional languages further down the road. There's also a lot of research that shows it helps with cognitive flexibility and critical thinking skills, which are things we're trying to promote, across all grade levels. It also supports student development of cultural competence. And something that we found particularly important as of recently is it offers what I call a soft landing for particularly Spanish ELL students. And so we've seen this actually play out both at Browns River and Richmond, where historically in this district, we have not had that many considered English language learners. In the last couple of years, we've seen an increase in those students. And what we found is that the Spanish Immersion program allows for those students to kind of enter into the school in a way that allows them to kind of transition a little bit better and be able to kind of become part of the community. We saw a great example of that at Browns River, where a student came in speaking no English whatsoever. They went into the Spanish Immersion program and they were able to build connections because they were speaking in their native language, and they also developed English pretty darn quickly too. So that has been really a benefit for us with the increase of students speaking different languages, a lot of which have actually been Spanish. Next one. So again, when we talk about the data, I heard I'm really going to be focused on the quantitative data, and again, it's snapshot data. There's lots of data that we could look at and data that we will look at, but for a short board presentation, we're just giving a bit of a snapshot. So these are class size averages over 3 years for both Jericho and Richmond. And really, I guess the main takeaway is that on average, they are pretty well kind of in line. With the SI or the English language, neither is like way higher or lower than the other one. But I think the important takeaway on that is these are, and this is how we look at class sizes, is we look at class size averages within schools. And that doesn't mean that there won't be anomalies. These are support staff comparisons that we looked at, just kind of to again go to the kind of the resource allocation component of things. And again, as far as like the English classroom support, and this is for current year, just so you know, that again, there's parity between the classes. Really, the only kind of outlier is less support in some of the Spanish immersion classrooms at Jericho. But other than that, things are pretty well kind of on par. Just for, again, last year, I have looked at more data than just this. This was brought up earlier, but all of the fourth graders for all the years that they've graduated fourth grade have received the Biliteracy Achievement Award. And as you said, that's something that I think a lot of kids are super proud of. These are from 2023, 2024. As you can see, again, the STAR reading, STAR art is the universal screener that we use. It's a universal screener that a lot of different districts use in Vermont. Again, kind of really a lot of parity with these. The main one that you can see is Spanish immersion, lower STAR reading. And that's something that we have seen, and that's something that was brought up when we were talking with, or when the groups were talking with the Spanish immersion programs when we were in development. And talking with Kevin at Browns River, most of the students have gained, made that up fairly quickly. So these are fifth graders, and that was to be expected.
Can I, just for clarification, Andrew, this is English reading and math in English.
That's correct. Yes, thank you. Yep.
Thank you.
This was also brought up, and so we made a lot of work on this front in the last couple of weeks. So as I said, as developed and as it stands, the Spanish immersion program is a K-5 program. After K-5, then there are options to maintain the Spanish or to go on to something else. So this is kind of where we've arrived more recently. Still, there's work to be done. And as several folks have indicated from Browns River, this was an area that needed attention and has continued to get attention, and that we're working on, is to make sure that there's a variety of options for folks. And so for after fifth grade, once the program kind of ends, then what we focused on is to provide different options. So one is, to do a language exploratory course, Right now, as has been mentioned, it's a VTVLC Spanish course with the goal to have on-site, Spanish courses. That really hinges on the staffing piece. And then to kind of continue that, then we're working with the high school right now to make sure we're getting folks set up so that they can take higher level Spanish, ultimately to do the AP and dual language. And one of the pieces of that is to test students with our own folks at the high school to kind of see where they're at when they exit the program, because as one can imagine, they're at different places.
Can I ask you a question?
So generally, we only have board members ask questions during this part of the meeting. So we'll hold for that.
Okay.
Thank you.
So where we're going next? Like I said before, this thing's still in motion. We still, it hasn't been around that long, and so we're still making refinements. Right now, actually tomorrow, I'm meeting with a group of folks to prepare for the first 5th grade class at Camel's Hump. We're continuing to refine the middle school and high school options to, again, make sure that folks can have the opportunity to kind of maintain that language development. And then the other piece is program advisory committee, which I just sent out emails today to kind of lock in the last few folks with the goal to meet sometime in November. The purpose of that committee is really to inform kind of programmatic steps, such as the previous slide on like what are the best options for folks in middle school and high school. So that's just kind of something that came about given a lot of the questions that have emerged to, again, help just refine and improve the program.
So before we go on to the other board questions on what you've heard so far, comments, questions?
I have a question. I apologize. I have this, half of my face is paralyzed at the moment. So if I look weird or if I sound a little weird, that's why. I'm just letting me know if you can't understand me. But I wanted to come because I'm here. I was on the board when we implemented this program.
That's right. I think I saw your name on there.
To the white paper, and
yes,
I care a lot about the program, and so I've been concerned and also appreciative to hear, some concerns, and I do agree that there are going to be growing pains as we take kids from little kids to middle schoolers and beyond. So, we need to, all of us obviously need to be thinking together and working together. I had heard from a community member who couldn't be here tonight, who I think might be online, but that, and this is just my ignorance, so I apologize, but is there a coordinator or a part-time coordinator position for the program? Is there a staff person who kind of oversees? I had heard, and I don't know if this is accurate, that there was someone, but they had to step into the classroom.
Correct. Yeah. So we did
have
someone for that, but it was contingent on being able to fill all the positions at JES, and so they had to step into a classroom teacher role. We do have 2 teacher leaders. So that same person, Sylvan, who's been in the program for a while, and then Emma Knickerbocker, who is at Richmond. They're the 2 teacher leaders for the program, and so they are on the ground a lot. We also rely a lot on Vicki Graff, former Jericho principal. She's a literacy coach in the district, and she helps out a lot as well. So she meets with them pretty frequently. So currently, no designated coordinator for that position, but it's the same person, Sylvan, working in a teacher leader role in partnership with Emma at RES and Vicki Graff, and myself, obviously.
Yeah. So that's something that maybe this is too granular for right now, but is that something that we would like to continue to have if the
staffing allows?
I mean, we have that budgeted for that position, because I think because we are the first program of our kind in this state, it really would behoove us to have someone who could reach out to other districts in other areas and really get a handle on what's working and what isn't working in different places. And it would be nice. So
I'm
glad that we have that.
Unfortunate circumstances.
I'm sorry that we don't have it in practice.
Just the reality of the situation. Before I just want to say one other thing to kind of close this out as well. You know, I talked about kind of a lot of the positives, but also it's not perfect. There are things that we're working on. It's not, you know, all rainbows and butterflies. There are, you know, different issues in different classes that, you know, we try to work on. And, you know, this is one of the pieces of the work that we do as a district. And again, feedback is critical to make it better. And so that's what we've been focused on.
Can I ask a question about that, Andrew? How does the community communicate with the school system to know how many students want to enter into the program? How do we know how many people aren't able to get into it that want to?
Well, we know that with the lottery we do every single year in the wait list that's developed. And so the lottery is through the school choice program, so it's done online through Power School with like kindergarten registration. We do all that at the same time. And then people apply to be in the program, and they can say like, you know, which, you know, they want to go JES, RAS, generally in the area that they're living. And then we do a lottery, and then we develop a wait list. And so, again, this is I'm entering my 4th year here, and just thinking back to the last 3 years, it's generally hovered around like 10 folks on each end for the wait list.
Has that been pretty consistent?
Since I've been here, it's been pretty consistent. Yeah.
Thank you.
Allison?
Hi, can you hear me okay? Can you hear me? Yeah? Yeah, okay, sorry. Thanks for the presentation. Some of the feedback I've heard, or some of the concerns I've heard from parents, is that there's a bit of an imbalance around privilege in terms of how, like, the demographics of the classes, you know, that the you know, frankly, coming down to sort of like socioeconomic factors that around some of the families that are in the program versus not in the program, difficult to talk about for sure. I know, I guess I'd just like to hear from the group what we know about that.
Yeah. So yeah, that's something that I've heard is brought up. That's something that we can look into and discuss that in a superintendent report at a later time. I don't have data on that. So yeah, that's something we can look at too in more detail. Anecdotally, I haven't seen that, but we can look at the specific data. I do wonder, you know, what the data will show us, you know, just to bear in mind, when we look at the data, we can parse out, you know, students who are identified as low SES as it pertains to like how the state kind of determines those things. But, you know, looking at the data from last year in our grant management system that has a bunch of agency collected data, you know, Jericho's poverty levels were 3% for Jericho Elementary, and it was 10% for Richmond. And so it might be difficult to extrapolate that out, but that was something that John and I were talking about today that we can dig into.
Thank you.
Yeah, just further on that.
I'm sorry. That's okay.
I'll just start my thought. I just want to thank everybody for coming here tonight, because it's so nice to have so much company in a meeting. It's not usual, and it's really something that helps us all to better understand what's happening in our schools. And there's something that you said caught my ear, and I just wanted you to expand upon it. When you said that it can provide a soft landing for ELL students, I know that there are a lot of things that go into helping ELL students be successful, and I'm hesitant to accept that the Spanish Immersion program is the only thing that is helping them have a good integrated experience in our school. So I was hoping that you could speak to that.
Gotcha. So there are specific things that we have to provide federally for students who are English language learners, regardless of where they're at. And we have a designated ELL teacher, Karen Roll, works in our district. And so regardless of Spanish immersion or none, those services have to be provided. over the last year or so, I've worked with Karen, and last year with Marilyn Dean, who oversees, she was former Director of Special Services. This year it's Jen Cote, which oversees ELL students. And so we started to figure out, like, how can we leverage this to support students? Because there were some families that were asking for that who were ELL families. And so what the approach that we've taken is that, and I just emailed Karen about this the other day, that first off, that whatever ELL services the student is supposed to get, they get regardless. That it's a choice of the parent or the family to have their student placed in a Spanish immersion if they think that that would be beneficial. And some have said yes, and others have said no. And that it's not necessarily for forever. That it's meant to, you know, help the student, in which we've had case studies that it has been very successful, to help them to kind of integrate into the school community, and then afterwards they can either stay there or they can move into an English classroom. But the intent is to kind of support their integration into the school community in an area where they are, you know, more comfortable for them. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, that does, and it raises one other point. As far as feedback that I've heard from the community is around the integration of the program altogether. And although we're hearing a lot of feedback of how it can impact the general population, I think that I'm expressing feedback that I've heard that some of those kids can feel isolated within the school community. And so I hope that some of our goals are to further integrate them and make a more cohesive environment when it comes to the Spanish immersion.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's John and I were talking about that earlier. So I do know that that has been an issue, you know, with Spanish immersion to some degree, is, you know, being a little more insulated from the rest of the school community. And so I know, like, there has been efforts like, all right, they're going to lunch together, they're going to recess together. By the nature of the program, yeah, they are a little more kind of insulated from that. But that is an area that John and I have talked about, is how can we better improve to kind of pull them more together so that they are more part of the community.
That's something we need to work on, for sure. I try to say very little, which is rare for me, because I want to really listen to what people had to say. And thank you for being here, and thank you for the feedback, and thank also for the parents that put a lot of trust in the program. And one of the challenges that we have really had is trying to figure out where kids are at after 5th grade. I think we're, you know, I'm not a toxically positive person, but I am an optimist. I think we're almost there. I think we've got an assessment that that you had shared with us, that we're going to try to test both of the 6th and 7th graders and then figure out where they are. And then, so like Andrew said, it hasn't been all like smooth sailing. We've learned a lot. And one of the fascinating things is the challenges that we've had here are challenges that programs, you know, in Massachusetts, in Utah, in Wisconsin, in Michigan, in California have had the same sort of issues. And that if we, you know, we're talking about 197 students, that's a big chunk of students that we want to make sure that we're supporting and nurturing. And you know, there are some feedback that is not positive from Richmond, and not so much, just being honest, at Jericho. It's very different, and I think part of that is the matriculation that we've had to where we are now. And we have a great crew of teachers at Richmond right now. I was at Richmond today talking to 2 teachers. They shared with me that they are incredibly supportive of the program, and that they want to see it integrated more, and that they're not hearing some of this. So I met with 2 people today, and I know that there's other people that don't feel the same way. So I'm totally But there is another side too.
Just so Steve, I'm going to go to you. Marlo, we're not taking community questions right now. I apologize for that. I know it's super unsatisfying for folks not to be able to ask their questions. And Allison, your hand is still up, so let me know if you have, okay, thank you. Go ahead, Steve.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks, Edie. The thing that really caught my attention with this whole presentation was that regardless of the program, whether you're a normal student or SI student, we're having 50 to 60% proficiencies in 5th grade for all students. Is that something that we're making a priority to improve?
Yeah, can I answer? Yeah, I mean, absolutely. That's definitely across the board. And, you know, something that I think I mentioned, not that I'm okay with those numbers, I obviously want those numbers to be higher, but just the reality, like, is that those numbers are light years ahead of not just numbers, student achievement numbers in Vermont, but like anywhere. Not that, again, not that I'm okay with that, but I do think just it's important to know that, yes, those numbers can be improved, and that's kind of like what I do is trying to, you know, improve that. And they are, I mean, as far as like in the big scheme of things, really good numbers.
Really? So to me, that would seem like we're failing if those are good numbers, like across the board. I mean, or is it just, I don't understand what they're actually testing here. Because...
Yeah, there's a lot to it that I'd be happy to talk about at a later time.
Okay.
That's great. So I know we're really tight on time. I just have one.
And then the next section will be pretty quick.
Okay. You want to go ahead, Heather?
Yeah, I have, yeah. So did you look at, so the 50% in English reading for the SI students, and that's in our district, did you look at any numbers based in other states that have these programs on what their 5th graders have, and then if they're on par with those students? That would be a good
Yeah, that would be something we can do at another time, just really time intensive.
Yeah. And then just like another, this is probably more for the people that were around when in 2016 when you were investigating the program. Did you look at any other options besides an immersion program? I feel like we really missed a huge opportunity and not thinking outside the box and doing a real robust K through 12 language program. So the idea of having all of our students by the time they graduate fluent in the language as opposed to an elite group of chosen ones. Okay, that's more of a point than a question, but I think that would really set us apart going forward.
Kevin, are you going to answer the question or ask a different question?
I was going to make a comment.
Okay, let me give John an opportunity just to answer, and then I'll come to you.
Yeah, so we did look at some other options. Not every student being fluent, K to 12, but we did look at some other possibilities. One was making sure there was language instruction at some at K to 12, and that when kids got to high school, that there was some robust offerings. And we are seeing, like, percentage-wise, more students taking higher level languages than they did 10 years ago. That was one of the goals. That's a good feedback. The only other thing I would add, because I think this is important, and Susan probably might be able to corroborate this because she was on the committee, that one of the places that we talked to, and I've talked to some people personally from other districts outside of Vermont, mostly curriculum directors, and they said that for the students, because they haven't had as much instruction in English reading, that they often are behind in 5th grade, but they catch up. Because one of the things, and another good point about the reason that we've seen some success with ELL students is, as students matriculate up the grades, they have a little less Spanish and more English. And that when Andrew was talking about a soft landing, that has really been beneficial for some ELL students to be able to communicate in their native language and then be able to also get some of that English language at a pace that they could maintain.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Yep, thanks, Edie. I'll try to be quick. First of all, I also want to just echo the thanks from the board to have all the feedback from the community, the parents take time out of their busy evenings to come here and talk to us. I wish I could be there in person, but I'm traveling for work. I've been also with Susan, was part of the on the board when this started, and I feel like we reached a milestone like today in this journey with language immersion by hearing from what it's been like to go through the program at least through 5th grade, and getting the feedback directly to the board is super helpful. I think also getting the same feedback within from to and from the teachers. I think those were good points made. The board and the administration showed a lot of courage to put this program into place. I think what we're hearing tonight, we can fix. I'm not hearing a lot of sentiment about, walk away. We have heard some things about equity that we should take seriously. We need to look at what's happening in RES and see if we can, bring that up or better to what's at JES and really understand what happens after 5th grade, which we made it, right? We got to 5th grade and we're hearing feedback. And I remember 6-7 years ago when we were talking about this program, what does happen after 5th grade? And I don't want to sound cavalier, but it was a little bit of, we'll figure that out when we get there. We're just starting in 1st grade right now. So, we're there now. We got through the pandemic, and I think with focus, we can fix this feedback that we're hearing. So thanks everybody for your time, and thanks for giving me some time to say my remarks, Edie.
Sure, thanks. Okay, I think I'm going to make the last remarks on this, and then we'll move on to the next part. I just wanted to jump onto what Kevin said. I think the post-immersion options are identical now to what they were when we put the program together, except for maybe the BTVLC thing, because that wasn't quite so available. And personally, I'm a little bit disappointed that we haven't fine-tuned that more. I feel like we had some time, and we have, the first year of the Richmond kids coming in soon, and I would hope that we have. We're a K-12 district, pre-K-12 district. We do all things pre-K-12, and I feel like we're missing that on this. And I'm a little bit, again, COVID, again, all of the other pieces, and right, so that's a piece that feels like we're behind where we should be on that. So just to think that. I think that when we're looking at follow-up data, Heather's point was really important. I don't want to lose that. So to understand what's going on and if it's possible in other states that have these programs and be able to compare to them, because we don't have an opportunity to do that in Vermont. So we, the same schools that we use to benchmark to decide to do the program might be helpful for us to continue to benchmark on them. And then something I heard earlier from the comments was about staff movement. And I think that's another piece that I would like to have information on for the board is, are there staff moving? One of the, again, benefits of being merged is that staff can move to different schools and that, different things come up for them. They're allowed to do that. I think it makes our district stronger, but I think we need to be making sure that there's movement. There isn't movement for a specific reason that we're not fixing that reason, right? So if there's a specific thing causing it, we should be understanding that, improving. So thank you. Okay, nature-based learning.
Yes. So this has been going on for a while. We've got a couple of bright spots on this. So one at RES, another at Brewster Pierce. I've been in those classrooms and mind blowing. It's amazing. The stuff that they're doing there is it's just fantastic. Both inside and outside. So it's not just being outdoors, but also the work that they're doing indoors. And I think the biggest part of why I think it's so important and impressive is it's supporting the social, emotional, and executive functioning, which we know if they don't have that down, they're not going to succeed academically. And again, I've been in those classrooms. I've gone on 2-hour walks at Brewster Pierce with the classroom, and it's just amazing to see what the kids are doing. And then more broadly, there's a lot of outdoor learning that's happening. And that's one of the things that I love about Vermont is, we have at all of our schools outdoor classroom spaces. They're not used all the time. Some teachers are more comfortable with being outdoors than others, but we have quite a few teachers who are utilizing the outdoor spaces. We utilize some of our ESSER funds to provide some training and resources to kind of support more play-based and outdoor learning. As we mentioned before, we also have things like snow motion, all school hikes, various field trips. There's a lot of stuff happening outdoors, not just at the elementary schools, but all of our schools. And, similar to the nature-based pre-K stuff, it's, it supports their academic learning because it offers them time to, develop teamwork, communication skills, problem-solving skills, critical thinking skills, which are also going to be applied in the classroom. The next one. We also have various multi-specialized programs. So it used to be at Richmond. It was called REMAC. Now it's called Elevate. It's at Smiley. But this is kind of our in-district option for students who have really specialized needs. And with all of these programs, the goal is to make sure that we're not isolating students and that they're in the building, that they're having opportunities to join recess, join lunch, and with the goal to ultimately go back into the general education classroom. And so both Elevate and Evolve at Browns River, have been doing great stuff to really support students and focus on, their assets. And we also have a similar program at the high school. And we also partner with, if you've heard of it, South Burlington's Big Picture program. We've got a couple of students who are participating in that. Really, the ultimate goal of these is that we're trying to meet, all students' needs because there's not necessarily other options outside the district. And so we want to make sure that we can provide that here in the district. And then at the high school, these are just a couple of the courses that they're offering. They've got advanced manufacturing, environmental studies, business management, and then a lot of students take courses at the Center for Technology at Essex. So just trying to provide a wide range of classes. That's all I have on that front. So we're doing a lot of really cool stuff.
How many students do we have enrolled in the multi-age specialized programs?
Well,
yeah, that's a good John question.
Yeah, I think I can give you a good estimate. K-8, 17. The high school it's a very, very specialized, so they have sometimes 20 students. And then in the big picture, I'd have to check. But that's been a great partnership and a really very interesting and flexible program that we've been able to partner with South Burlington on.
Other comments, questions? Go ahead, Allison.
I just want to say one more time how much I would love to see us expand the outdoor and nature-based education. It seems like a pretty innovative thing came together with Spanish Immersion. And, I wasn't part of that, but we already have what it seems like a lot of infrastructure in place to really do something more formalized around some of the great programs that we already have. That wouldn't necessarily involve finding people from outside the district to come in. And so I don't know if there's any way to, whatever happened when Spanish Immersion kind of came together from the ground up, I would love to see us coalesce around something similar and really be leaders in this outdoor education in a more formalized way.
That's important to call that out because we do have the expertise already in our district on that. So thank you for doing that. Other? I want to jump to that. Okay, thank you. You are welcome to stay or go. I know that you're getting over illness. So
yes,
you won't be offended. And that's the same for anybody else. You're welcome to stay. You're welcome to go, and you can have some trouble. We're gonna do a minimum priorities for the 25-26 school district. The rest of the presentations will be done in the finance committee meeting. So if folks want to attend for that or watch that afterward, we want to do that. Kathy is here. Yes. Carol, sorry. Carol is here to talk about nutrition in the district. And yeah, you're welcome to join us right by the microphone. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I wanted to be here in person so I can meet you all and say hello. And you can see me, so when we bump into each other, we can say hello. I'll be really quick. I've been spending a good amount of my time subbing at Campbell's Hunt Middle School because we've been pretty short-staffed, but we've made a couple of excellent new hires. And I'm getting out into the other kitchens. And the goals for this year is really to support the staff we have in place. We have some incredibly talented people in our kitchens who have been kind of pressed to their limits through COVID, and then universal school meals is amazing. And it also has increased our participation to the point where they're super, super busy. So I'm here to support our staff, to assess our programs and evaluate our infrastructure. The goal is to gradually increase our local foods purchasing and get back to more cooking from scratch. We're going to do that in a really mindful, responsible manner by laying the groundwork and assessing what we have now and what we need to be able to make those steps towards more scratch cooking. It means looking at our equipment needs, looking at training for our staff, and also our labor as it is now, and what it would take to get to a 15% local purchasing threshold. That's the threshold I'm looking for, because that would make us available to us a local foods incentive grant, which would give us 15 cents per lunch extra reimbursement, and that helps pay for those local foods. So this first year is really assessing, evaluating, and forming a foundation to build on. Identifying stakeholders in the district and bringing people together to form a local foods group. I made some connections today at Jericho Elementary. We've got some really strong people. Down at Brewster Pierce, I've made some connections there as well. So that's kind of the tone of what this year is going to be. Goal setting and laying a foundation. Anybody have any questions for me?
Only comment, say Carol's really hit the ground running. Again, really, in a short period of time, improved the program, really taken a deep dive into what we need, and just has a really great positive approach to the work. So thank you.
It's my pleasure. Oh, thank you.
Don't go anywhere. I have questions. But
Okay.
That's never happened before.
All right. If you can't eat and you don't have a full belly, you can't learn. So thank you very, very much.
I
love this.
I just want to thank you for saying that, and even mentioning scratch cooking. I think it's a real head scratcher for a lot of parents in our district. They wonder why, in such a amazing, plentiful local board culture, that it's not happening in our schools more. And we understand that there are growing pains with that, but I'm grateful that you're trying to work in that direction. And I think most people will be happy to hear that.
Yeah, and I can share with you that the cooks that we have in our kitchens, they're yearning to do that. They want it. They have the skills and the talent to do it. So.
Yeah, I think that Katie said perfectly. And I love that you have a plan on how to make it happen and how to support it financially. I have concerns that we possibly may not have universal meal funding forever in Vermont based on the way. So I just want to put that out there as you're planning. If you would be planning for that also, that would be incredibly important to understand, just because there's a lot of discussion around the state about whether that's funding that should be happening or not.
Right. I'm a member of the School Nutrition Association of Vermont,
So you're
and was heavily involved in advocating for universal school meals, and I'm very, very much in touch with, finger on the pulse of what's happening there. So
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Kind of to just piggyback off of Katie.
Yeah.
I know at the high school this month we're trying out a whole new lunch menu pretty much. Like every item is new. And I just want you to know, like,
is it good?
pretty much it's going really, really well. A lot of the items, like, it shows in student reception of all of the food items. I feel like morale and energy surrounding the new lunch items has actually been very high. So it's very appreciated.
That's all I ever wanted. When you ever talk about change in the high
Oh, yeah.
school, it's number one.
So if I could ask you to spread the word, be sure that feedback's getting back to your lunch ladies and your food dudes.
Oh, I'm very
so
close to
that
them. Yeah, it's trust me.
Go ahead, Tara.
Thank you for being here. Right, like the Spanish Immersion, we've been looking for feedback on that program. We've been looking for feedback on school nutrition for a while now. So to have you here to talk about your priorities, how you're supporting our kids, I'm just really thankful that you're here and in person and doing what you're doing and keeping your finger on the pulse.
Thank you.
I'm really
Appreciate that.
appreciative. Thank you.
So I have one other, Allison, is your new question?
It's like in the air.
Yeah, okay, Kevin? She's in there, she's like, yeah.
Yeah, this is Kevin. Just a quick question. With the universal funding model that we currently have in place, are we incentivized to grow the consumption of the program, or does it not matter anymore?
That really doesn't matter anymore. So we're going to try and make improvements within the boundaries of that reimbursement that we receive. Does that make sense? I mean, we still try to increase participation in our schools, but most of our schools are at around 70% participation as it is.
Way up.
Yeah.
Yeah, what would drive our motivation to increase it from 70 to something else?
Increased reimbursement for the program, revenue for the program.
And then the question that I have been getting asked in the community is around the non-reusable items that are in the lunchroom, whether it be water bottles or plastic throwaway trays or still, plasticware, things like that. Are we making a concerted effort to green up that area?
That will be one of our focuses moving forward. I can tell you part of our issue has been being short-staffed. When we have people out in the kitchen, Camel's Hump has been running pretty much on 2 staff and my help. One day it was just myself and 2 subs who were in their mid-70s. So I did not think I'd be the youngest person on staff when I came here. And so there are times we lean on disposable plates. Those are a compostable paper plate. That's a pretty big picture kind of project that we're looking at. And definitely one we need to get to once we get fully staffed and have been able to reach some of the other goals on our list, such as fully utilizing our software system that we invested so heavily in and making sure that's completely accurate. And I mention that because if the data in that system is not accurate, then the health of our students is at risk. So that's my number 1 priority now. Number 2 is supporting the staff and getting more local food scratch cooking in. I think our environmental footprint comes along with that. I will be meeting with the environmental club at the high school next week, I think it is, and they have concerns, and we're going to work together on that. So it's on the radar for sure.
I'm not sure if this is a question or it's more of an observation. With the whole mindset around like the scratch cooking and local food, who chooses the cereals that are like the options? Because like, my son comes home and he eats Apple Jacks, and like, why are we serving high sugar cereals in our cafeterias to our students? That's my question, I guess.
A couple of reasons. We have a limited choice from our distributor. And then there's the ones that sell best to the kids. We could stock cornflakes or rice checks, and the kids won't eat them. The good news is USDA is lowering the sugar standards for breakfast products. And so that is going to make us make everybody across the country look at the sugar content in their products. And corporations are going to be reformulating their products to be lower sugar. And most of us in the state of Vermont are working on new recipes and formulations for products and trying to bring more low sugar or non-sugar breakfast items to the menu, so that we're reformulating our recipes for baked goods, and we're trying to bring more proteins into our breakfasts. And USDA has also just changed some standards on allowing for proteins at breakfast. We are looking at ways to get more vegetables and fresh fruits into breakfast. It's also been a lot of the same kind of pressures that came from COVID with prepackaged things, and with the higher numbers and same staffing or minimal staffing. So I would really rather see us give an option of the Cheerios or Rice Chex, or the two of those, which are very low sugar, as kind of just an alternate meal. But then we have this beautiful homemade low sugar breakfast, heavy on the protein. So, and our staff are all talking about that as well. We've started conversations amongst the MMUUSD staff on what can we bring into our breakfast programs that can be taken to the classrooms, because we don't eat breakfast in the cafeterias anymore. So it's got to be portable, but we want it to be low sugar, high protein. So the conversations are happening. Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here today. We're very excited to have you working on this in our district. And
it's a great
we really
pleasure.
Appreciate you adding the face and the name and all of that together.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you all.
Very much.
Stay tuned.
Okay, so our next agenda item is final criteria from the superintendent search. We can approve. What I'd love to do to start this off is have somebody move the document to as it stands, and then we can make modifications as we go. I think that's the way to do it. We're good. No, so, oh, sorry. So all of the other presentations on the finance piece will be done at the finance committee meeting later this month. So sorry.
I vote to, well, are we approve the superintendent criteria for that one? Because
I would second that.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, so let's have a discussion on the final criteria. Let's make sure it includes all of the pieces that we discussed at the last meeting, and anything else that we want to make sure is in there. Kathleen, hello, welcome. Is there some other way you want to kick this conversation off?
No, thank you very much for having me this evening. My hope is that the document that you have for your consideration and hopefully for your approval tonight is one that clearly reflects the input and the feedback that you all shared with Hank and I in your work session a few weeks ago. So we feel that this redraft really captured that feedback very closely, but hopefully you will feel the same. I would just say that if there are further changes to be made, the suggestion would be that that one would need to offer a very specific way of rewording something, and then that would from a process standpoint, need to come back to the group as an amendment to the document, and then vote to approve that amended section of the document before approving it.
Yes, great, thank you.
Thank you.
How do folks feel? Is there anything that we need to change in here? Is there anything that needs to, and would you mind copying the thanks, Brett. Did you scroll it down just a little so we can get them fast? Okay, so back up just there. I think we can get all the words, yeah, right there. Perfect. Go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, I reviewed it, driving, so I can't see it now, but was there a, what changed, revision markup, or I had a little trouble trying to figure out what was different.
We didn't provide a marked up version, and really, I think there were probably 4 or 5 things that changed. I can go through and hit the ones that I'd like to call out. The first would be in that initial section under brain sophistication in language immersion. You can see that literacy was added. That was one of the comments that was shared. The following bullet with respect to established track record of developing budgets, that was revised to capture the comment that it wasn't just a matter of stewarding a budget that had been developed, but that the superintendent needs to be actively involved in the budget development. Let's see. The final bullet point in that first section, the second to final bullet point in that section was modified to say actively engages in the day-to-day work of schools, to kind of convey that sense that this is a very hands-on position because it is such a lean organization with respect to leadership. And then the final bullet point in that section is a new bullet point, and that was to address the issue of wanting to be sure to include something related to the district's commitment to equity and equity work. Looking at the following section, we don't believe there were any changes made in that middle section. The final section, there was a modification. There were a couple of modifications. The third bullet point down speaks now more directly to the policy governance model and also the superintendent board relationship. And that was out of desire to a desire to make sure that applicants are aware of both the policy governance practices of the district, so the importance of the board superintendent relationships. I'm getting a ton of feedback, and I apologize, but Brett, is it possible to mute your microphone? I'm thinking that's where it's coming from. Thanks. Oh, that's much better.
Thank you.
Yes, I probably should have asked to do that sooner. My apologies. So anyway, in that final section, in the header of that section, approachable and strategic, you can see that we inserted forward thinking. There was some input that was offered with respect to kind of reflecting that concept of innovation and future orientation. So that's how we captured that. And then, as I was saying, under the bullet points, speaking specifically to the policy governance and the board superintendent relationships, and then also that bullet point around cultivating and nurturing collaborative relationships with regional educational leaders and partners. And I want to say that's the entirety of the changes from a conceptual level. I think, we went through and kind of added some more semicolons and that sort of thing, but those were the things that were substantive.
Thank you very much for going through that. That's helpful.
You're very welcome. Edie, would you like me to turn it back to you now for further questions? And
Okay, yes, we're on mute. Go ahead, Heather.
I was gonna say, I think after reading through it, I think it did a really good job on all of the corrections, if you will, that we had in the last draft. I really like this version. Great.
Good thing you moved it. Yes, Sam.
Yeah, one of the things that I want to just have everyone kind of put their brains on together is to make sure we have identified and mentioned strongly enough that we want a superintendent that leads the district in engaging all students in the process of learning in their classrooms. And I'm not sure if it's clearly enough in there. And the reason why I bring this up is because when we were doing the listening session at MMU on October 5th, we had two community members that were incredibly articulate about the idea that we need to, as schools all over the country, do more to engage students, that it's harder to engage students now than it has been in the past. And that the other community members, so one of them talked about engagement in a really significant way. The other one and they were talking at the same time in a small group with me. The other one was talking about, and if we access community supports more, that we can allow our teachers to prioritize focusing on having highly engaging classroom experiences for all students. And I thought that was really powerful. I mean, I thought it really made a lot of sense. And in addition to that, at the Superintendents and School Boards Conference last Friday that some of us went to, I went to a workshop from the folks at Lamoille South, and they just went this year to a phone-free school. And one of the things they said, among many others, has been extremely positive, is that the teachers were so grateful to have that piece out of what they're dealing with in the classroom, because they're working hard to engage students, and not having phones in the classroom was really helpful. So this idea of, really thinking about engagement and allowing teachers to really put their energy, their expertise into engaging students, because that's harder to do, and not all students are engaged. So I just want to make sure we have that, something along those lines of, a superintendent that leads the district in assuring that all students are engaged to, the best of our ability. So I'd love people's thoughts on that.
So I saw 2 lines in here that, were you gonna answer the?
No, go ahead.
That may together hit that. So in the first part, the third to last bullet unabashedly focuses on student well-being and consistently prioritizes students when making decisions, along with the very last one in the whole document, which is joyfulness, hope, and sense of belonging among students, staff, families, and the greater community. So I feel like those 2 together may capture that thought. So I want you to think on that and see if you need to reword some of that.
I would also throw in actively engages in the day-to-day work of schools and leads by doing and model service. But also the 3 of those, I think, would really encompasses what you were getting at. It may not be its own separate bullet point, but I think that it is a feeling you get from reading this that is taken into consideration.
And then jot that down as a question for when we do interviews.
How will they do that?
Yeah. No, exactly. Absolutely.
Are you unabashed?
Right. Kathleen, do you have something? You're still muted.
Oh, please mute yourself again.
I don't have anything specific to offer in that regard, but I do agree that I see the intention reflected in those bullet points that you identified, Edie. I guess I would just say that at this point, given where we are with the document, that if there is to be an amendment, if someone could offer that in a very succinct statement, and then the entire group would need to process whether or not that's something that they would like to add to the document.
Well, since I brought it up, I do feel comfortable for the most part with what you said, Heather, that and Edie and others, that we have it in other bullet points, but that thread of what these 2 community members said to me was just really powerful, and I want us also as a board to continue to think about that. How do we prioritize teachers being able to put their time and energy into really engaging students? Because with engagement, hopefully it leads to belonging and a greater sense of belonging as well. So so I feel fine about it, and I will offer that question to our candidates. Thank you.
So I'm still not loving the bullet point we got hung up on the first time around, that now says bring sophistication in language, immersion, literacy, early childhood ed, and career technical education. Because we all spend a lot of time adding, right? Like these semicolons could go on forever. And I guess I was hoping to see it kind of pulled back and reined into more of that innovative education that we had talked about. Because I'm going to ask, why isn't outdoor education reflected here? Why isn't, I could list 4 other things, but I know we wanted like that to stop. So I guess I'm curious as to why it just didn't be a little bit more broader, right? Instead of having multiple semicolons, right? Because I totally called out the literacy, because if we are gonna list these, literacy should be in there, outdoor education should be in there. But if we just broadly say around not sophisticated innovative, I don't know, because I'm not the best wordsmither on the fly.
I was just going to offer this remark, and it's both a remark and a question, but as I understand it, this document is a bit of it's a marketing tool in some ways. and it's offering these sort of wonderful kind of qualities, which, you know, I both had an objection and sort of an attraction to the word unabashedly, you know, because isn't it sort of nice, you know, to think that there might be a teacher who would be unabashed about their love and affection for education, right? That it's okay to have that kind of a person, you know, feel like they would be qualified to apply for a position like this. And so in answer to your question, then also we don't want a document that, you know, has so many parts to it that someone says, well, if I don't have any outdoor education, maybe I shouldn't apply. Or, you know, I'm not terribly sophisticated in Spanish immersion, but I do have some experience working in immersion programs. So I guess I would direct my question then back to the consultant. Am I reading it that way right?
I was going to say, Kathleen, before you answer, can I throw something out there?
Yes.
So because all of the things that we do in district, language immersion, literacy, early childhood, we don't do career tech ed in district. We don't have a career tech ed center. We do have outdoor learning as a focus in district, right? So for me, I would swap those because that's, you know, if they don't know how to run, like I don't want them to think they have to know a career tech ed program because that's not right. So for me, that's the one that doesn't fit, and swapping those seems reasonable, but I don't know if that's where you're going or not.
I think I would be okay with the swapping if we adjust the sophistication word. Yeah, I know we were told not to do that, but right, like Tom just said, if we're saying we're expecting sophistication in these list of things and somebody maybe doesn't, I have 1 out of 4, will I apply? I don't know.
I don't want to wordsmith, and I say this last time, but I feel like an enthusiasm for is maybe like what we're trying to express. I like that, rather than a sophistication of, and that's where I'll stop saying.
That would make for a very easy amendment. Then brings enthusiasm to programs in language immersion, literacy, early childhood education, and outdoor education.
Lisa?
I thought we sort of wanted someone that could hit the ground running for some of this. So couldn't it be more like it brings sophistication to special education initiatives such as, and then have all of those in parentheses? Do you know what I mean? I guess I would just hate to lose. That's because I'm interested in all of these, but I'm certainly not somebody who could hit the ground running as a superintendent to do them. So that's just my thought.
Kathleen, I feel like we just throw out a dozen different suggestions and we're the wordsmith.
No, we have to do the words.
So,
you want to go before Kevin?
Oh, is this Kevin going? Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to encourage the board to try to, you know, make motion or you know, amendments here to make a change, or, you know, vote on it, move forward. You know, we could spend a lot of time making it perfect, but we won't end up with a superintendent. So I think we have to trust the process and consider it's good enough, and let's try to move this forward.
And to Kevin's point, if I may, I just wanted to say that, you know, this isn't the only opportunity that prospective applicants will have to learn about your district. Hank and I will be engaging in many one-on-one conversations with prospective applicants and with applicants. And we will be using all of what we learned during the key finding or during the engagement phase. And as we drew those key findings from our engagement work, we're sharing that with people so that they understand what's happening in the district. And a lot of it is, you know, a lot of it may include things that aren't necessarily called out specifically on this document. So I just want to assure you that this isn't like like the only thing that someone will have to learn more about the district. And I guess I also just wanted to get to that point about career technical education that emerged through survey input and through some of the focus groups with people saying that they would like to have more career technical education opportunities within the district. So that's why that's there. But if it makes sense that you would be seeking someone who is enthusiastic about outdoor education, then I think, as Kevin just suggested, maybe if someone could propose an amendment to that wording, say specifically what that would look like, and then vote, and then move on to the next bullet point that you hope to adjust.
Oh, I was going to just say exactly what Kathleen just said. We have the consultants. This is one document. It's designed to be a big picture. And I mean, I'm in favor. I think it's good enough. And I think we should move on. But I understand that people have other feelings about some of the wording. I don't want to get too caught up on specific words. I'm going to serve us.
So do we have language, specific language that folks want to bring in?
As the person who seconded this document for approval, I would reiterate that position. I think it's good enough as is.
Yeah, and in light of what Kathleen said about the fact that the tech program came up multiple times in surveys and in person, I am inclined just to leave it as is, given that's something that the community seems important. It seems important too, so I'm inclined just like the person that forwarded moved the motion. I'm inclined just to leave everything as is and pass it.
And so I just want to say on that point, when you look at tech ed in that way, it puts outdoor education in the same category as something we want to see more of, and we receive the same feedback. So I would move to.
So how does this work?
Yeah.
You want to amend, we're in a motion, right? We're in discussion. Do you then say, I amend the motion?
Yeah, we can just, we can amend the motion. We can amend the document.
Okay.
And then, yeah.
Technically, you have to ask the permission of the person who made the motion.
Can I have permission to amend this document?
Yes. If you really want to follow around.
And that would be to simply add outdoor education to that
bullet, to that
if
semicolon list.
Yes, sure. I mean, I would be on the side of reducing it. But if we're really talking about what we heard from our community, and we're going to keep that tech ed component, I think it's only fair to keep the outdoor education part.
We don't need a second for that, right?
Right.
Second. Do you,
as long as
I don't think we need it. You just have to accept it.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Solely? Okay.
Because it was your motion, so. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I don't think that by having a long list of things like this, a candidate may or may not be as knowledgeable in one or the other isn't going to stop them from, it wouldn't stop me from applying. So I think that even if we do have a list of these, they're just going to see that these are some of the examples of things that we are really that are important to our district. So I accept.
I think we call that a friendly amendment. We don't have to vote on it. We just kind of slip it into the original motion.
Correct, correct. But are there other lines that folks want to modify? I'm going to be comfortable with the silence and allow people to really take a look. All right, so to be clear, when we vote, we're voting on the document as it stands, plus outdoor education in the third bullet point from the top as one of the items in that list.
Can I ask a quick question? So in the new bullet point, very last one in the first space, it says IRIS framework. I'm from outside of Vermont. What's IRIS framework? Is that a conversation with Kathleen and Hank, or should IRIS be spelled out?
If they look up the Vermont Education Quality Standards, IRIS will pop up immediately, and if they don't go to the effort of looking it up, then I don't think we're interested.
I hear what you're saying. With the acronyms, I get very tired of having acronyms put in front of me and then figure it out for yourself, right? I want to hear what it is, and then I want the acronym and friends.
And then can I clarify that that's the place where we're putting equity?
It's in another spot too, I believe. Yeah. But, I mean, the last sentence, I believe.
Yeah.
I think it's called IRIS. Like I just pulled it up.
It's just doing the same.
It's called IRIS Ethnic Studies. Identity Development, Resisting Racism, Interconnectedness, and Social Responsibility. So they call it IRIS. Yep. All right. Are we ready to vote? Ready to vote? Okay, so again, to be clear, we are voting on the document as it stands. However, the third bullet point will add outdoor education as one of the items in the semicolon list. All in favor? Okay, an eye or a thumb or something? Aye. Aye.
No eyes here.
Any opposed? And no abstentions. Correct? I think that was a unanimous vote. Great. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate your work on this. Kathleen, really appreciate your and Hank's work on this. I think we have a document to go forward with. We have an HR committee meeting on the schedule, don't we? Do we have one?
We do, but it's not on the.
Yeah, it's not on.
It's November 11th at 8 a.m.
Okay, so we have the next one is November 11th, 8 a.m. for the HR committee. So we will be possibly using that as part of it. Kathleen, is there anything else that you need from us tonight?
This is exactly what we needed, and this gives us the go-ahead to begin our recruiting process, and we're very excited about that. You'll also continue to see this document through subsequent stages in our search, particularly once you get to the selection phase and you're starting to review applications and interviewing folks. You'll be using this as sort of a scoring rubric. So it's going to be a very helpful document, and good work. Thank you all so much for your thoughtful input and for your engagement. I know it's getting late for you all, so I appreciate you hanging in there with me.
Great, and then just to be clear, the full board is at rest now on this process until mid-January, early February.
Yes.
HR committee will be continuing the work. We are going to be posting the position mid-next month, mid-November. It will be open till the end of the year, and we will be looking at candidates in January. Yes?
Yes.
Great. Okay, so that's where we are with this.
All
And
right.
we're moving forward. So thank you, everybody. Really appreciate all of the work on this, and onward. Yes.
Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
Great, you too. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathleen.
Thanks, Kathleen.
Bye.
The next agenda item is to approve the minutes from the 14th of October. Can I get a motion to do that, please?
So moved.
Thank you. In a second? Thank you, Thomas. Any discussion on the minutes? All in favor? Yeah, thumb and I, indication that you're aye. Aye. Great. Thank you. Looks unanimous. Yes, unanimous. Great. Thank you. Committee reports. We're going to skip the Human Resources Committee because we don't have anything to add after the last piece. Community Engagement Committee, do you have anything?
I can just give a brief update on the conference, which was focused on community engagement.
I was going to save that for the end, but you can.
No, I mean, no, go ahead.
Because it's legislative and VSBA, but you should do it now.
I don't have anything to say, so that's why I said it.
Great.
So, yeah, nothing new to report. No, we went, so a few of us went to 365 days of community engagement. What does that look like? And it was interesting because we realized I was under the impression, as was Heather, possibly Edie, that they had a full-time communications consultant who was really enthusiastic and had a lot of energy for posting on social media and going to follow field trips and having their own school newspaper. And it turned out that that is a senior in their community who was formerly working in broadcast journalism.
Formerly an advertising and journalism executive who is now retired and volunteering in the district.
Yeah, so we should really look for someone like that. And then B, they had wonderful, the greatest thing that I took was that we put together a great annual report. I think it's really engaging, and I think we could just add a couple of sections that they offered in theirs, which was a frequently asked questions section, as well as a term glossary section to sort of like, yeah, and then, just a reminder to not overlook summer and all of the amazing things that happen in our schools that we can be communicating about. But it didn't quite apply to us as a board. It was a lot of how schools can do outreach. I know that you went to the phone one, and if anybody else went to something else, they can feel free to share.
And just engaging folks at all levels of ability at our meetings. And so we need to make some modifications to our agenda on that. Yeah, that was right. That was another takeaway. It was a good meeting again. So yeah, 5 of us from the board went. So a third of the board went, maybe half of the board can go next year.
Yeah, we have great accommodations.
I went too. Also, there was great. Like the first Thursday evening was celebrating public education, and schools sent students in programs that they have, innovative programs, and they were all absolutely amazing. Like there was this bike tech program through the Tech Ed Center down in Leland and Gray, down in Windham County. Like there's one of the schools, Norwich, has a student broadcasting club, and they put together their own student news network. It's called CNN, Catamount News Network, and they put on their own 5-minute news broadcast that are then the students watch in classroom. There's a robotics program that was amazing. There was it was really inspiring to see all these programs and really get you thinking about stuff that we could maybe think about implementing here, or it was fabulous. So
we're finding out what is already here, that there's always something that is happening in the district that we don't realize is already happening here. So I think it's always great to see other schools highlight that and then find it in our own community.
Finance and Facilities has a meeting later this month. Next month?
Yes, on
next month. Sorry, go ahead, Lisa.
Yeah. It's on the 14th, 6:30. I guess we'll be hearing about facilities and transportation, amongst other things.
6 p.m. start.
6,
Don't
sorry,
show up at
yes.
6:30, you'll be late.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Regional Advisory Board, I don't think has had a meeting yet this quarter. We just did,
Nothing to report.
thank you. And then we just did the legislative and VSBA, so I think we're good with that section, yes? Yes, great. Any other business? Anything exciting happening at the school you want to tell us about? You don't have to be on the spot.
Let's see what's coming up. We're done with the first quarter, which is exciting and slightly terrifying. I have like a counter going on, and every time a quarter ends, I turn to my friend Annie and I'm like, hey, just so you know, we're 9/16 of our way through high school. And she's like, stop, don't do that to me. So that's definitely exciting, getting into the second quarter stuff, but nothing like major, big, flashy to report. Nothing to report.
Sometimes no news is good news.
Yeah.
Yes, nothing good, nothing bad.
Right.
I will say that the semifinals for some of the sporting events are coming up, and I think boys volleyball and girls soccer play on Wednesday in the semifinals. I think volleyball is at South Burlington and soccer is at CBU. I'm sorry if I'm missing any other things. And Nemo won golf girls state again this year, 4 years in a row. So that was just really very exciting. So yes.
And then just so everybody knows, Edie and I did attend that the meeting that they had in Jericho
last Wednesday.
Yeah, last Wednesday, and that everybody was referencing. It was really, really great, and obviously a really respectful, approachable group of people. And I encourage anybody that wants to learn more to get in touch with that, reconnect.
Christine Holt.
All right.
It's great.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thanks, Thomas. Heather, your second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Great. All in favor, give me a thumb and head on your way. Go watch the baseball game or whatever else is going on.
Hey, everybody.
Don't forget to vote.
Good night.
Thanks. Vote for Edie.
Oh, thank